Hello everybody, it's Silvia. Welcome back. I hope you're doing good. Today we are talking Halloweeny spooky season. So I did a video a little while ago, a few weeks back, which was my autumn deck picks for the decks that I wanted to work with across the whole of the autumn season. And this is specifically the kind of October Halloweeny decks for me. I'm also going to talk about some books that I want to read because that feels appropriate to me. Spooky season, reading with decks, reading spooky books, sounds like a perfect time. So that's what we're doing in this video, and I think that's probably all the introduction we need, so I am going to get straight into it. Okay, so first up, this is the Horror Tarot. Like, obviously, right? This is, I think, the only deck that has some overlap with my autumn deck basket for the whole season. So I will get this one out of the way first. But I mean, I have to pick this because obviously. So this is a little bit more of a light-hearted, kind of cheeky horror deck. I really enjoyed this Judgment. It's absolutely one of my favorites. It draws from a lot of different movies and horror stories for the imagery. Some of them make more sense than others, I'm going to be honest. It is an Insight Editions deck. It's got this gold foiling for the titles, so they are there, I promise. They're just not really showing up in the lighting. But yeah, it's an Insight Editions deck, so the minors are kind of variable in how good they are and how pippish they are. Same with the courts. I love this King of Swords. This is one of my favourite King of Swords of all time, as the kind of like shadowy side of that Heir of Air, as like an artificial intelligence, as someone who's like a bit robotic and like logic above everything else. I love this. Some of the courts though are kind of meh. But you know, it's a good fun deck. I really enjoy reading with it. It reads really well for me. I've had this since last autumn and it's just a really good reader. It's a really fun deck. I really enjoy it. So yeah, this one I feel like that's all the explanation this needs. Okay, next up we have the Vampire Contingent. So this one here is the Vampire Tarot. This is illustrated by Natalie Hertz. This one is out of print, but I found it for a very affordable price on eBay, so it might also be quite easy to get a hold of. Look at that incredible Queen of Swords up top. I love this. When did I talk about this? I feel like I had this out recently in a video. It would have been in my 54321 tarot tag. I picked 5 decks that were just really cool decks that I feel like I've been neglecting, and this is one of them. I love the aesthetic of this deck so much. It's like very gothy, punky vampires, and it's got this like kind of spiky, intense energy, mostly down to the art style for sure, but it's just so cool. This is really fun. It is quite intense though. It's not one that I would pull out for a more lightweight reading. I was using this for a little while paired with the Urban Crow Oracle recently, which was a really effective pairing, but like really not for the lighthearted. But yeah, this is the first of my vampire decks, and it's just so super cool. Okay, so this is the Tarot of Vampires. This is the Llewellyn big box one. They have recently come out with another vampire deck, right? Which I am not at all interested in, to be honest. It doesn't look nearly as good as this one. But this is the one by Ian Daniels. So where my other vampire deck was like punky, gothy vampires, this is much more like tragic, romantic vampires, you know? I adore the art style. I love that it's kind of, oh, what's the word? It's like a little bit cheesy, but I really love it. They're very like sexy vampires, and I can't wait to work with this. So I haven't really read with this yet. I've been saving it to study with, which I'm going to be starting soon. But I think this is going to be like a very deep reader. There's a lot of symbolism and meaning behind the art. Like there's the astrology in, I think, all of the cards in the artwork. Yeah. And And the book is like 300 pages chock full of text, and I know that there's a lot of like intent behind this deck, and I'm really excited to dig into it. But yeah, so I don't have too much more to say for this, aside from it's obviously the perfect Halloweeny spooky season deck. And like aesthetically, this is just gorgeous. This is like what I wanted to look like, dress like, etc. for like all of my teenage years. And I still think it's very cool. It's just a little more high effort than I can be bothered with nowadays. But yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to getting into this one. Lord of Grails. Grails is cups, and I think Lord is the king equivalent. Maybe. Prince. But then it's on a horse, so maybe the Lord is the knight. Got Prince, Queen, Lord, and Daughter. So I think Lord must be king. Maybe it's a bit more Thothy structured for the courts. Anyhow, this is why I need to study this deck. But yeah, like it's all text and like Kabbalah and elements and alchemy and like all sorts of stuff, and I'm so excited to get stuck in. Okay, so the Buffy Tarot. This is pop culture vampires to, you know, round out a balanced diet of vampire decks. This came out in, was it like February or March? I don't remember. Early spring this year, anyway. And I haven't worked with, I love this Lovers. I adore this Lovers. I'm going to be really trying not to interrupt myself too much when I'm flipping through this. So yeah, this came out early spring. I haven't worked with it too much, but like, just like flipping through it now, like, Giles is the Hierophant. Like it's so good, and I definitely am going to be keeping, I think I'm going to be keeping this out, because this has been a little bit more tucked away in my deck collection. So I think I'm going to keep this out to work with more. It's been said before by everyone who's reviewed this deck, but like this deck is just so good. The scenes and the characters that have been picked are like really, really perfect. It's so clearly, love this, it's so clearly been created by Buffy fans, and there's something about a fandom deck, or at least a fandom deck that's been done well. Love this. What did I say about not interrupting myself? Clearly that was an impossible goal. Something about a fandom deck that has been done well, where it's like it gives you an extra layer of correspondences and like context for the meaning of the cards, and this one does just work so incredibly well. So this is the Buffy Tarot, which I'm sure you've seen before because this one caused quite the excitement on TarotTube. I love the colour palette as well. This is why also it's perfect for like Halloween, like the blacks and the purples and the reds. Like it's so good. Okay, who's next? I think this one. So this is the Raven's Prophecy Tarot, which I'm fairly sure look at that death right on top. We love to see it. I'm fairly sure I have categorized this previously as a summer deck, because the black and the bright colors make me think of summer evenings. No, maybe it was in my cozy decks video, I think, because that feels cozy. Like hot summer evenings when it's dark outside is the coziest time to me. Anyhow, I can't deny though that the black and the orange is perfect Halloween colors, and this also, especially with a lot of the imagery, this also is a very Halloweeny deck. Like that simply can't be denied. Like look at all the bones, and there's loads of ravens. So this is by Maggie Stiefvater, who wrote the Raven Cycle books. I don't think that you need to have read the books to work with the deck, because it is kind of its own system in terms of a lot of the symbology. Like it's very much a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but the imagery is very much doing its own thing. And it references the books, but not hugely. So it's a bit of a learning curve either way, is my point. I worked with this in, was this my July deck? I really loved it. And yeah, I'm definitely also keeping this out for the next few weeks because it's so gorgeous and I really enjoy being like immersed in the world. This is one of my favorite Seven of Cups cards of all time. But yeah, the black and the orange and the ravens, it's totally a Halloween deck. So yeah. I also need to actually do something with this bag so I know what deck is inside it. I got some of these bags off Amazon to put my Llewellyn big box decks in, the ones that I work with a little bit more. And I have yet to decorate any of them. So that's a project. That's a thing that needs to happen. Okay, so the Dead Weight Tarot. This I've got to have a tarot collectibles deck for each season, right? You know how I feel about tarot collectibles decks. They are my favorite Rider-Waite-Smith clones. And this one is so much fun. So I think I've shown this off before. Yeah, in my video showing off my favorite like tarot backs and borders. I love this. Because part of this deck is it's the Deadweight Apocalyptic Survivor. So it's supposed to look as though it's been through the apocalypse. So it's all like torn up and bloodied and like burned. And it just looks so good. It reads like a fairly standard Rider-Waite-Smith because it is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but it's just like dressed up for Halloween, you know? So again, I really want to work with this. I don't know when I'm going to have time to do all of these tarot readings that I seem to want to do, but I really enjoy this. It's just really fun. Like, this is a really fun deck. Like, maybe it's a bit gruesome. If that's not your thing, it's not your thing, but I really enjoy it. And one of my favorite cards in here is the Nine of Swords. What's the betting? It's either the last card or it's one that I've already flipped past without realizing. Yeah. So this Nine of Swords is like one of my favorite cards because you've got actually human figure and then the zombies all outside the window, and it's like, yeah, it's a pretty nightmarish situation. I just think this is it's a fun deck. It's a fun Halloween deck. So these last two decks are a little less overtly Halloweeny and more generally a little bit dark and moody. I'm honestly shocked that I don't seem to have more dark and moody decks because I'm such a dark and moody bitch, which you wouldn't know because usually all you see of me is my hands with like usually pink and sparkly nails, but we're feeling autumnal. So this is another Llewellyn big box. This is the Darkwood Tarot. So this is a like dark fairy tale, haunted forest, generally witchy vibes kind of a deck. This is illustrated by, I love this Two of Swords with the like demony things and then the reflection. This is illustrated by Abigail Larson, who also illustrated the Horror Tarot deck, the first one that I showed. I love her art style. I think it's gorgeous. And I really love this deck. It's a very beautiful deck, but is also fairly dark and moody. I read with this was my like monthly deck, I don't know, back in like February, March, April, sometime early this year. And like it was like dark, but not dark, you know? Like it lends itself well to more like shadowy stuff, but also is a fairly straightforward Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And it's one that I just generally really enjoy. I will say I don't love the Pentacles suit in this deck. It feels a little bit pippish. It feels like maybe it was a little bit rushed, which is a shame because I think the rest of the deck is really good. So yeah. Also really enjoy this Seven of Cups with the cups behind her and her being like distracted by the bats. I just think it's really good. Okay, so the last deck I have to show you is the Terra Volatile, my beloved. So I lied when I said there wasn't much overlap with my autumn decks basket, because this one, if I remember correctly, is also in there. But like, look at it, it's so moody and grungy. It's perfect. I don't think of this as a like particularly dark and shadowy deck, although it does lend itself well to that, but there's a lot of dark and shadowy elements in there, especially with the alternate cards that you can swap out. So I've swapped the Hierophant for Dogma because I think the alternative was the Pope. And oh, let me see if I can find it. So so the other Hierophant is just the Pope. It's nice because you can sub in slightly more Marseille styles. And like here we have like Time and it's not Saturn eating a sun for the Hermit. And there's a few different cards for Death. Like we've got Rebirth, we've also got Misery Collector. And I think the Moon as well. We've got like Torment for the Devil, Hubris for the Tower, which I do like, and like you can have like Labyrinth for the Moon or the Descent for the Moon. So you can definitely like sub in some more like dark and moody alternatives for a lot of the cards. And then I think if you do that, the deck like obviously does lend itself more to some like deeper, darker readings, but I have it in order at the moment. But yeah, just the color palette and a lot of the imagery that's used, like there's a lot of like skulls and things going on in this deck. Like it's dark and moody. For me, it's perfect all year round because I love this deck. But I think it is especially good at this like darker time of year as well. So yeah, that is the Terra Volatile. Okay, so as promised, I also want to chat some books with you today. Can you tell that I kind of miss being a booktuber? We have a collapse going on. It's only really in the autumn, to be honest, that I miss being a booktuber because I want to get all cozied up with like books and blankets and coffee and candles and all that jazz. Speaking of coffee, is it too late for me to do the coffee house tarot tag? Because it feels like it's too late, but this is the perfect time of year, so I might do a very, very, very late response to that one. That might be coming. Okay, I am forcing myself back onto the correct train of thought. Let's talk books. These are all horror or horror adjacent books. I have had most of them, if not all of them, on my bookshelves for a good long while now. So I also want to be making the effort to read a little bit more, maybe replace some of my screen time with reading time. Anyhow, this is my shortlist of like spooky season books, so let us get into it. These here are the Monstress comics. This is volumes 3 and 4. These are by Marjorie and Sana Takeda. The art style is like stunning, as you can very clearly see. They are gorgeously illustrated. So these are not actually horror, but I really want to get to them because I keep forgetting that I own comics. And from what I remember of the first two, which I may or may not need to reread, this is more of a like darker kind of fantasy. So it still feels right for the season. It fits with this little collection of books. This is set in a high fantasy world inspired by 20th century Asia, which has been divided following a war between humans and the Arcanics, who are like magical creatures. And we follow a teenage girl who is one of these Arcanics, who also has a link with a monster, which, if I remember correctly, may or may not be this figure. And she's finding stuff out about the world and about where she comes from and this monster and trying to control it. And it's very, very good. And like I said, I need to remember that I own comics and actually read them because these are fantastic. The art style is gorgeous. I have the first 4 volumes. I know there's more than that out by now, but I'm not sure how many more. So I'm excited to like get caught up. So next up I have House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson, who wrote The Year of the Witching, which was an incredible horror book that I loved and adored. Witches, haunted forests, blood plagues, would super recommend. And in this book, we are following a girl who goes to work as a blood maid for a house of nobles who need to drink blood to survive. I know this sounds like it's going to be vampire-y, but I don't think it is. I think it's based on the Countess Elizabeth Bathory, who was a countess in Hungary in the, I want to say like 16th, 17th century. Anyways, I'm clearly not too hot on the details, but this countess was accused of killing hundreds of young women and has become like part of national folklore and this like horror figure. But frankly, even if I didn't know any of that, this has been blurbed as a bloody sapphic fever dream of a novel, which truly is all I ever need in order to want to read a book. I'm immediately sold based on that alone, even if I hadn't already read her previous book and knew that I liked her writing. So that is House of Hunger. Okay, Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one is vampires. First of all, can we just appreciate the absolutely stunning cover on this book? But yeah, this I think is a bit of a noir, like fantasy with vampires. Yes, a pulse-pounding neo-noir reimagining of vampire lore. So this is vampires who descended from Aztec blood drinkers. I know nothing else about this book, and frankly I don't need to, because Silvia Moreno Garcia is somebody I've read a few things from. She like genre jumps and like tone jumps quite a lot between different like fantasy and noir subgenres and like intersections of subgenres, and this one is a bit of both. Fantastic author. I don't know how like scary horror this is going to be. I don't think it is like scary horror, but I'm like, it's vampires and thus it is Halloween adjacent. Can you tell I really love vampires? I just do. Okay, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I nearly misread this just now as What Moves the Bed, which is an entirely different genre. Anyways, this is I think it's a retelling or an interpretation, or inspired by at the very least, retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. I have never read any Edgar Allan Poe, so I have no frame of reference or expectations for this, which frankly is sometimes the best way to go into a book. I've read a few T. Kingfisher books before, and the horror books that I've read, they manage to be scary while also having a sense of humour, so I'm hoping for more of the same from this. But yeah, I know literally nothing about this. I just know I like the author. I'm imagining there will be mushrooms and decay involved, so sounds good to me. And this one is blurbed by Caitlin Starling, who is another author I love, and who I happen to also have a book by. So this is The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. If you want to read about morally bankrupt lesbians, Caitlin Starling is the author for you. Having said that, I think this one is not lesbians, but like, I'm hoping still morally bankrupt. So this is a historical horror fiction. Our main character, she decides she needs to marry for the convenience, basically so she can be left alone to get on with things that she thinks are more important. She finds a guy, he agrees to marry her as long as she promises to never go to his spooky mansion in the countryside. But of course, she ends up at his spooky mansion in the countryside. And I think this is like Victorian, Victorian medical horror, Victorian ghosts. I don't know, I'm excited. Gothic-y, Victorian vibes. And like I say, I really love Caitlin Starling's work. I've read a couple other books, and one of them, terrifying, unputdownable. And I'm like, I'm not big into horror, I'm not big into being scared, but I really love her books. The last book on my little horror Halloweeny shortlist is Feed by Mira Grant. I mentioned Mira Grant in my recent Virgo season wrap-up because I'd read The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey, who is an entirely different author, but that book reminded me of the Parasitology trilogy by Mira Grant, and then I remembered that I had this book on my shelves and really want to read it. So this one is also zombies. I think this is like post-pandemic zombie survival. That didn't sound like a correct sentence. Yes, an infection that created zombies, and this is 20 years post-zombie, so it's like survival post-zombies, and I have no idea what else happens. I'm super looking forward to this. I always find her books really, really gripping, but also the in-world science is always really well, like, built up, created, explained, something, which I love, because that's what I like. So anyway, that is my little short list of books. That is my little short list of tarot decks. That's everything I plan to be reading and reading with for October spooky season. Yeah, that's everything I wanted to share with you. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you've got on your lists. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what I should prioritize as well, because I very much doubt I'm going to get to all of them in the next like 4 weeks. That is simply unrealistic, but we'll see. So that's everything. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me. I hope you've enjoyed. Give me a like if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.